So he ended up walking into a very beautiful ruin. He said, "Nice ruin." He was walking in there, looking around, exploring, and he said that he heard a whisper, and he was listening to the whispers coming from deeper inside the ruin, the dark. And he said this rock started flying out from him, from the darkness, nailing him in the head. And the voice was sounded like it was running towards him. It was screaming at him in another language, so the Anasazi language. And this thing was chucking rocks. Yeah, it was. He said he was running for like about maybe 100 yards. He said these rocks were flying. He said he'd turn around, he'd see these rocks levitate and fly right at him.
Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his Codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with a Codega and sharing one of yours. They say the night has a life of its own. Out in the wild, when the air grows still and the stars hang heavy and sounds travel differently, a single whistle can slice through the darkness like a blade. But in many native traditions, whistling after dark is more than bad manners. It's an invitation. It's an open door to spirits, shapeshifters, and beings that listen for that call. Some say you are summoning the dead. Others believe you are alerting something ancient and inhuman, that you are alone. My guest tonight understands these warnings better than most. Don Yazzie is the host of the Don't Whistle at Night podcast, where he ventures deep into the mysteries of Sasquatch, the little people, portals, centaurs, Navajo Skinwalkers, UFOs, and other encounters that blur the line between the seen and unseen. Very similar to my show as well. As a researcher, an outdoor adventurer, and a lover of the unknown, Don just doesn't tell stories. He carries the traditions and experiences of his people into modern investigations, bringing old wisdom to new mysteries. So today, we step into that shadowed space where folklore meets fact and where one small sound, just a whistle, can change everything. All right, everyone, welcome back to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. For those who don't know me, of course, my name is Rye the Codega, your guide through these crazy stories, these crazy experiences, these unexplainable events. And once again, we're going to bring someone to the stage that has a lot to share. And I'm sure, like myself, everyone, we've got a lot of listening to do. And before we go any further, just again, shout out to everyone. Please hit that subscribe, share the show, do what you got to do. I really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's bring Don to the stage. Don, welcome to Codega's Codex of Curiosities.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Yeah, nice to be a part of your show and your audience as well. Hello to all you listeners out there as well.
Awesome, Don. So, for those who haven't found your show, can you give us a little bit of a description or like a little bit of an intro about your show and about yourself as well?
Yeah, we're fairly a new show. We really started this spring of this past year. We are a Native American show, specifically Navajo tribe, but we reach out to multiple tribes out in the Southwest, and we're reaching out hopefully to Mexico and South America to, you know, hear all the hear all the paranormal stories, from the mystical creatures to the UFOs. The same thing, what you do as well, and at the same time, we're also, giving a little insights from the Native American perspectives on why things are occurring, the paranormal events, and we're just offering a little 2 cents in, from either from the Navajo tribe or from the neighbor tribe. Everyone gets a say in it. You basically, if you were to join us, you'd just be listening to our conversations, and yeah, and also, just being out in the field myself, also investigating such things as Sasquatch, running into the goat man, seeing portals and seeing abductions myself, and seeing, hearing and smelling so many things that no one can explain, and this life is always full of mystery and always going to have me at awe, and I think that that's one of the best things to do is try to, you know, place my hand and see what puzzles I can fit in this mysterious world we live in our time here in this world.
I think that's amazing. I think it's very important that we hear from the side of the Native Americans, to tell us because you have been here the longest and you have the most experience. Like your tribes have the most experience here, and the stories that have been passed on. Like I have interviewed a couple of Native Americans, and the stories that they bring forth really shed a light on this all. And then also you said, your boots on the ground, which is extremely important. That's something I would love to be doing myself. I just don't have the time or the ability right at this time. But I think it's very important. And, with yourself having boots on the ground, you get these firsthand experiences, like you said. I would love to hear about some of your experiences if we just want to jump right there and start there.
Oh man, oh, we can be here all night. We can be here all night. I haven't shared all of my paranormal stories with everyone out there. Even on my podcast, I haven't shared a lot of things.
Okay.
I have yet to share the Ouija board experiences. I think I'm gonna wait till October to share that one.
That's a good time to share that one. Waiting for the Halloween. Okay, so okay, before then maybe we should go into I know Navajo, they have the official term, like, it's skinwalker, right? This is something that, like, a lot of people throw this name around, but I'd like for you to clarify for us what the skinwalker is, and if you've had any experiences yourself or any stories you want to pass on, because I think this is something that, you know it gets mislabeled a lot. A lot of people are like, "Oh, that's a skinwalker. That's a skinwalker," and it's like, well, let's let's get down to it and find out what a skinwalker really is. Then,
Yes, exactly. You said it. You said it. You said it exactly on the head. Everyone thinks that a skinwalker is a cryptid, but the skinwalker is not a cryptid. So there's plenty of stories on how we got that. Some people say it's a gift. Some people say it's a curse. Some view it as both, and others view it as long as you keep balance. The light and dark, that type of deal, that type of stuff. And one of the stories that I'm going to share with you is one of the popular ones that I've heard, and the story goes way back, you know, at a time where before the before everyone came, from over the seas. It was just the Native Americans here, and we had a plague of our own. There was a plague going around, and a lot of our medicine men were trying to save as much of our people as they can, and they weren't getting to point A to point B, point C fast enough, and people were dying. And these medicine men were the only ones that know how to heal people. They're herbologists as well, and so the thunder god. So we have one of the deities. He's a thunder god. So he's one of the holy deities. He's seen the struggle. He's seen what was going on. He came down. He started teaching the medicine men. He said, "I'll give you this gift. You can get to where you need to go faster. You can save your people." So he taught them that gift, and they started going everywhere quick. Really fast. And there's a god of the darkness. His name is Ye'etlajin. So he's the god of the darkness. So he's always around, always around us humanity. Wherever there's war, wherever there's famine and suffering and pain, he's always there around there. You would see him in the spirit realm. So he's seen what was going on, and he's seen that their people are surviving. You know, People aren't suffering. So he went to the medicine man and he offered them. He said that I can teach you the same things, but you'll know more. I'll give you more power. You'll he gave them temptation. They fell for it, some medicine men. So one of the teachings that the medicine men give is you have to learn to be balanced with yourself. And some medicine men do do works out there. They really do heal. They paranormal events are around them. And the stories will go on, and like when you jump on my podcast, just listen, you'll hear amazing miracles. They are performing miracles, but it's really all hush hush. And some some they lean more into the darkness, and they also do more cursing. They take lives, and once they do that, they have to keep doing it. They have to keep doing it. They can't stop because it's just like a serial killer that has to keep killing and taking lives. So that's what he is. So his heart gets darker and darker. And as a child, I bumped into this medicine man. My family's been dealing with this evil medicine man, ever since before I came into this world. And we took some of his own out, and he took my loved ones out. So we were always at constant struggle with this guy, with his family. And so, I bumped into him one time at a grocery store. No, it was a gas station at the time. I bumped into him. I was a child. I look up and I didn't see him. I just knew it was an old man with a blanket on, cowboy, the Navajo black hat and all that. I bumped into him and he turned around, and I knew who he was already. I was like, oh, it's this guy. He turned around and you ever seen Grandmother Willow, the Pocahontas?
Yes,
The
yes,
long smile and the dark eyes. Yeah, I seen his
yes.
eyes get dark, just went completely black, standing there. And one of the things that we're taught is, you don't have fear. You're not supposed to have fear. Once you have fear, you give them that energy. You give them that invite. You give them the power over you. So you give them that energy that they need to project it onto you. So that was going on. I was standing there, and I looked right back in his eyes. I wasn't scared of you. I said in here, I'm not afraid of you. When I get older, I'm gonna kick your a. I'm gonna kick your butt.
Yeah.
And then, just when I was saying that, my grandfather came. He came and bumped them. Against the coolers. Where the drinks are, and my grandpa picked them up and started shaking him. So this man, no one knows how old he is. No one knows how old he is. So he's been living off his own family, taking his own grandson, his own kids, his own great great grandsons. This was all going on back in the 90s. He was really famous back in the day. You will find pictures of him on the internet, but you won't know who he is, but I do. So,
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
so yeah,
So what you're saying is he's kind of taking the life force to prolong his.
yeah, yeah. In return, he has to do evil things, take lives. So people would. So that's the deal that they made. They weigh in heavily on the dark side. And I have this friend of mine. His dad, he was, he thought he was being taught by a right medicine man. He was teaching him the same things. Like teaching him a lot of magic. I don't know how to say it to you. Just strange
Yeah,
magic.
no, yeah,
Miracles, if you would say that. So he was teaching them all these things, because how they would pick an apprentice is if they have that gift, if they would see something that no one can see, that's there, that can see. That's a median, actually, basically, a median. So that's how they would find whoever, and willing or unwilling. That's how that life force they want, that power, that gift of that person, either to consume it or either to make it apprentice, you know. And so, yeah. So where was I at? I went off on that. I went off on that route.
no, no, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, you were telling about how your friend's dad, was it your friend's dad
Oh
who
yeah,
was
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
being apprenticed?
Thank
Yeah,
you, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
that's okay.
So he was young. My friend, he was married to his first wife, and that was his wife's father. So his father-in-law was teaching him for a few years, I believe, teaching him all these things. He has to complete this, he has to complete this, and then the final completion. So he would become initiated, was he has to take the life of his loved one, the one person he loves. And that was his one of his sons, I believe. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do this. And his father-in-law kept coming around saying, hey, bring that loved one over, we need to sacrifice him. And, he kept saying no. And he's like, if you don't do this, I'm going to take your eyesight. He said no. And he took his eyesight. He was blind. He was blind for a few years and he became an alcoholic, and at the gas station. So a lot of times on the Navajo Nation, you would see on the gas stations, there's people that are homeless, panhandling. And a good fraction of them were former apprentices that couldn't go through with the final initiation. So they would get cursed to do meth, alcohol, just be possessed basically, in the dark forces, the evilness of this world. So they would just be off in that on that path, blind, bound by whatever dark thing that is around them, you know. So that's what hit my friend's father was like that for a while. And he met his his mother. He met his mother at a gas station, and she recognized him and she took him home and cleaned him up. He stopped drinking and she introduced him to her father, which was a medicine man. But turns out that this medicine man was the worker of the light. And he restored his sight right away.
Really?
Yeah, I believe it's the same way Jesus did. He grabbed dirt and spit on it and rubbed in his eye.
Get out.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And that's incredible, but it's also terrifying that you have like of course there is always the yin and the yang, the balance out there. There's the evil and there's the good, but how like I feel sorry for your friend because it's his father-in-law, and and how do you know that this person is of the darkness? How you that they're taking you down this path. It's kind of one of those ones where it's almost too late, and it kind of seemed like that. It was almost right at the very end where he was, you know, given this challenge and he refused it. Thank God he refused it, but unfortunately, his life was a bit of a living hell for a couple of years. It seemed like, and then he found the light.
Hmm.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So how
It's like blackmail.
That's exactly it. And this sounds very, like the story of you saying you have to take the life of a loved one. This is something that, we hear in Hollywood as well. In Hollywood, there's a lot of stories of actors or musicians who sacrifice one of their loved ones for their fame and fortune, and many have done this, and it's terrifying that you're seeing it and you hear it in other cultures as well. They're following this black magic, so to speak, to acquire power or fame, which usually are somewhat one and the same. Okay, so a skinwalker then, is it, from what I've heard, is you have to sacrifice a loved one to gain this ability, and a skinwalker is, and I'm just doing from what I, and please correct me if I am wrong, is they sacrifice a loved one and then they gain the ability to change or morph into a creature. Is that correct?
Yeah. Through chants and another sacred ceremony, series of sacred ceremonies where they would have to consume human flesh, where they would have to do ungodly things that you don't want to hear about. Very,
Of
very dark
course, of course.
practices, from drinking donkey urine, from uh, necrophilia to, just the same thing what a serial killer would do. Same thing, but just with magic tossed in there. And it's the our version of the occult. So we have our own version of the Freemasonry, Illuminati, but it's all Native American tied in because all I know is that certain tribes they have their own type of deal, and we know some they do. They have the same thing, or a little different in their own ways, which is here in the Southwest. So you would be around this tribe, and you were Navajo, and they would do a curse.
Oh
They would
no, there
make
goes the
these
power.
dolls, kachina dolls, and they would sing some songs, and those kachina dolls would come over and harass you because you're Navajo, and you would go around another uh, tribe on the Pueblos, Southwest tribe, and they would be the same thing. They would send snakes after you. They would send spiders after you because you're Navajo. So it's just like fighting fire with fire constantly. when you're out in the Southwest, especially near Navajo, which is not fun most of the time.
So this happened again just recently this week. The whole power went out in the whole area when I started talking about. Have you ever heard of something called a targeted individual?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was talking with a targeted individual, and we started getting in deep into something, and the whole power in the neighborhood just poof, went out. It was during the day, no storm, no nothing. This though was right at my house. This was not a this was like it was isolated to my house only where the power just went out, and the power was it's a connection at our pole almost. I gotta climb.
Wow.
I don't climb up the pole, but I gotta go up onto like the edge of the house with a pair of pliers and kind of twist the wires together. Yeah,
Ooh.
not the safest, especially when it's raining out and everything is wet. And I'm like, I'm twisting. I got these pliers; they're insulated, but I'm twisting it. And I can hear it
Mm.
going. Zzz, 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 and I'm like, oh my god. So yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. What was very strange was the power would go on. Like so, when it went out, it would go off for like 2 seconds, come back on for about like 4 seconds, go off for two, come back for four. So it's getting some power, but just not enough, and it's very strange that it's during these shows when we start talking about things that are, I don't know, little things that are kind of the dark nature or the evil nature, and then you start talking about it, and then that happens. It wasn't like from a thunderstorm or a
Mhm,
thunderstrike, which are having a storm right now, but it's not. So
mhm.
have you ever had anything like that happen?
Yeah, yeah, a lot, especially, like, when you're cooking, like, your stove fire would just get higher, a lot of paranormal events because, yeah, like, a lot of times we would traditional Navajos, they would after talking about scary stories, they would put, cedar ash on each other and on the kids and on the doorway, just like blood of Christ over the doorway, like, with ash, cedar ash, and, you know, uh, they would have they would have ghost beads as well, like, it's basically cedar beads. When, when when the Spanish came, they brought with them, smallpox, and a lot of people passed away, and our answer to smallpox was, who would know? Cedar. You just make cedar into, like, a soup, and that was how we recovered from smallpox. So, in remembrance of that, we would pray over those cedar beads. We'd dry them out and make into a necklace around you,
Interesting.
and yeah, and, like, when we were talking about, like, the things of the darkness that go on in the dark, things like this would happen, the electrical issues, like, being in a high strange area, my night visions would all go out, and even my audio would go out, and I wouldn't catch anything at all. And here I'm catching something, and, um, like, strange things would happen, and even, like, over the radio, people would be talking about skinwalkers, and then they would have issues over the radio. That was like one of the stories over on Coast to Coast. Things happen like that when he would have try having Navajo guests on talk about skinwalkers, and there would be interference. So I'm
Wow.
well aware.
Yeah, you're like, "This is just, nothing new to me." Yeah, you're like, "This shit happens all
Yeah.
the time." Oh, man. Yeah, I've been thinking about doing, like, more protection when I do these interviews as well, and maybe I should be doing something after. It's something that, I kind of did about a year ago. I was kinda starting something about a year ago, and then I just never did again. And I really think this is as good a sign as any, be like, okay, time to get back into that practice of, protecting my space and my area and my family as well, because I don't want that. And when you're talking about electrical, I have a story and I'd like to get your perspective on this. Okay. So I had a good friend. She was like a medicine woman and she had her own sweat lodge. She was Blackfoot and she had her own sweat. Well, she was Métis, but she was brought up in the Blackfoot ways. And so I went to her sweat lodge. And after that, I just decided I'm going to drive out into the mountains. And this is when I lived up in northern Canada. And so I drove into the Rocky Mountains for the evening. I'm like, I'm just going to spend the evening up here in my truck. And a friend of mine decided to come along. So I don't, I just kind of let spirit guide me. I'm like, I'm just going to drive and I don't know where I'm going. So I end up down some back road up in the mountains, and like, this is as good as place as any. And it's dark out. I again, no, there's no cell phone service or anything. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and we get out, and my friend says to me, he's like, "Oh, is there any like cougars or mountain lions in this area?" And I'm like, I said, "They are, but they're more afraid of us than we are of them." And he's like, "Okay, okay." So we step out, and I had a little dog, and I let him out, and I turn on the light on my cell phone. As soon as I do that, I hear a loud, like a large cat, like a mountain lion or a cougar, like just like roar kind of thing. Like, wow. I can't do it, but but something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
holy crap! So I ran and grabbed my dog, and like that was completely unexpected. Like I drove up. It's not like my truck. It's not quiet, but it's not loud either. But this whatever it was there, and so we spent the night. We go into the truck and we just crash in the truck, and I go to start the truck in the morning. Power is completely gone. Like the battery is drained. There was no issues with the battery prior to this. Battery is drained. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, oh crap, this isn't good. And luckily, when I woke up, about half a mile away, there was a house, and I knocked on the door about like 7 in the morning, and the guy had booster cables, and he gave me a boost, and I was able to drive. So I drove back to my friend's place, and I dropped off my other friend, and I kind of told her a little bit of our experience. Then I went home. As I'm sitting there at home, then a my light turns on in the house. It's kind of has those roller switches, not like a switch on the wall, but it was like a plug-in light, and it had a roller switch. You had to roll it to turn it on. It was a salt lamp, and it actually was on, and it turned off. And I was like, okay, that's really strange. And about a minute later, I had a painting on the wall above me, above my bed, and it fell off and hit me on the head. And it was like at that point, I was like, something followed me home. It would be like a hitchhiker or something like that. Uh, do you? I just like to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think about that story? Is that something that you hear often about things following people home, or like
All the time.
all the time? Yeah, and it was
Mhm.
like hearing that. It was crazy because my friend said to me minutes before we heard this, like we're just in the car or the truck, and he's like, "Is there any like cougars or mountain lions?" I'm like, they won't be around here. They'll run away. And then we just go out, and it's maybe 5 minutes, maybe. And I turn on my light, and that's when we hear that, which was very peculiar for me. It's not common. Like there is cougars or mountain lions in that area, but like I said, they're afraid of you. Just so strange.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I bet I bet you went like near an old either a ruin nearby, probably like under the overgrowth. Maybe someone lost their life in that area. That's one of the two top candidates, and one of the things that one of the stories that I remember hearing all the time was or one of the warnings I should say, for that not to happen is to stay away from ruins such as like Anasazi ruins or places where battle sites taken, like old ancient battles or massacres, because they always catch a ride home. One of the things that we have to worry a lot is the Anasazis. They'll because all right, there's this story where this one guy, he was really athletic, and all the girls liked him. He was really talkative, he had his bike, this was the 80s, he was a normal guy. He was a normal guy, and he was trying to get home from this place called Blanding, Utah, and he was trying to get to an area called Halchita, Utah. So this is southeast Utah, and he didn't want to hitchhike on the highway, so he started walking, do a straight cut, through all those comb ridges and washes, and he was hiking. And there's this whole area called Cone Ridge. There's ruins all the way up and down, everywhere. Southwest is full of ruins, and Southwest is very old and haunted and ancient, you know. So he ended up walking into a very beautiful ruin. He said, "Nice ruin." He was walking in there, looking around, exploring, and he said that he heard a whisper, and he was listening to the whispers coming from deeper inside the ruin, the dark. And he said this rock started flying out from him, from the darkness, nailing him in the head. And the voice was sounded like it was running towards him. It was screaming at him in another language, so the Anasazi language. And this thing was chucking rocks. Yeah, it was. He said he was running for like about maybe 100 yards. He said these rocks were flying. He said he'd turn around, he see these rocks levitate and fly right at him. And yeah, and he came back. He made it back, and he was telling everyone what happened to him. And the next day he wasn't right. He started not speaking right. He started not being coherent, and he just lost his mind. That happens a lot. And there's just another story of this girl, out in the desert. She came upon this ruin again on the same cone ridge, but this time the ridge is in Arizona. So this ridge is long, goes into Arizona, Utah. And so she was along that cone ridge as well, in this beautiful ruin. She walked up into it, and she was exploring. And a lot of us from the Navajo Nation were poor. We don't got the best clothes and shoes, so her shoes was ripped and worn and torn. And she seen in the ruin that this pair of moccasins, it was a white, real beautiful moccasins, the most beautiful moccasins she ever seen. And she tried it on, and it fit her just right. And it was comfortable. And she's like, maybe I'll finish herding the sheep today, and when I'm coming back through here, I'll come back up here and put my, you know, I'll put these moccasins back. And she did. She went on throughout her day. She was chasing the sheep back. The sun was going down, and she completely forgot. She got like close to her homestead, and she realized, like, oh no, I forgot to take these back. So the sun was going down, so she just took it off and she put it behind some bushes to hide it. And she went back home, and that night her foot was hurting, her bones hurting, everything. She was just crying and crying, and you know, and she realized that it's that moccasin. The next day, she went out there to go take it back, return it. The moccasins were gone.
Jeez. These are incredible. These stories are incredible. Like, it's very, it's terrifying as well. It's kind of like they're it's like almost like a trickster in a way that's playing for you. It's like, come on here, take these. These would be perfect for you, and it's just, it's terrifying that there's things out there that will do that. Um, I've heard of stories of things following people home when they've taken stuff as well. Like, there was a woman who was doing a, not a documentary, but a show at an abandoned old jail. And she found this hat, and she's like, "Oh, it looks really good on me. I'm gonna." And so she took it home, and she brought something with her, and and unfortunately, she burnt the hat. And there was a person who I follow who's like a medium. She's a very gifted medium, and she's like, what you did was you released the spirit from its confines in that hat. Now it's kind of like, trying to deal with it is that much worse. So it was very, very difficult to try to exorcise that demon. But like those moccasins, it's crazy that these things attach to them and cause us harm and ill. It's ridiculous. So, what about you, Don? Like, I know I asked you earlier. You said you got a ton of experiences, but if you had to say, well, we were talking about skinwalkers before. Have you had an experience with a skinwalker other than that medicine man when you bumped into him? Has there been any
Yeah,
other experiences you've had yourself?
yeah,
Would you
yeah,
mind talking about them?
yeah. So before I bumped into that man, um, just before I was like 6 years old at the time, and and we didn't have a AC. One summer night, I remember I had the window cracked open. I was laying by the window, and one of the rules is you always close it. Close your window no matter what. And I fell asleep with the cool wind coming through. It put me to sleep, and I got home, or my mother got home. She was working late, at the restaurant, and she got home and she closed the window and she got after me, and she woke me up, and you know she got after me the next day. I was like talking to her, and she was talking to me. She started like touching my hair, and she's like, "Oh no!" And like right at the center of my hair was a huge patch missing. Someone cut my hair.
Really?
While yeah. So the skinwalkers, these guys that do witchcraft, they would go through and cut your hair because your hair is an extension of you, and they would even take a piece of your clothing. Just that anything that belongs to you, they can use that, and they could use that against you. So, like with her doing that, touching my hair, like she's like, "Oh no, your hair cut," and then boom, I left the window open. I was like, "Oh no," and just looking at my mom's face and her eye, just see the fear, the terror, all that. You know, as a kid, first time I ever seen that, like something bad's gonna happen, and only thing I could do was just buckle in. I knew I was gonna be in for a ride. Like, and that night, I fell into a dream where I woke up into a cave, and in Navajo, that cave is called Inti Bahuan. So it's the Skinwalker's lair. They have cave systems. You would have to find them. There's ways you would find them. Not anyone can just find them. There's only a few ways you have to find them. So inside of there is their lair, and I seen the walls. They have like hair, pictures, clothing, and then like I don't know how to explain it to you, but through my hair, my eyes opened up through my hair, like the bundle of my hair, and I was looking at this lady. She had her hair in front of her face. It was like a pepper, black and white. I couldn't see her face, and she was laughing at me, and she was chanting. She was singing the Navajo death chant like this. She was singing my hair, and I started spinning in circles and circles. And I wake up from the nightmare where I couldn't walk, I couldn't move, I'd be dizzy, and I feel like someone's spinning me on the merry-go-round, but I'm not. I can't walk. I'll be falling everywhere and I'll be spinning. I'll be screaming and crying because I can't control this. Something's going on, and my family, they knew it was witchcraft. And, I don't know how long I was in that state, probably like for maybe a week or so. No one couldn't, they would walk closer to me. I'd get more dizzier and dizzier. I wake up from a sleep screaming like someone's spinning me in circles. And I hear the laugh, and I see the lady in the cave again. She's singing another death chant, and I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't drink anything. I was so sick that I couldn't walk, and I was just sweating. People, they would try to pray for me a lot. And, one night I fell into really deep sleep. And my grandmother, she picked me up and she placed me in another room. She laid down where I lay down. She said she was falling asleep, and she felt someone touching her hair. And she jumped up and ran to the light switch, turned it on, looked. There's no one there. She looked up on the roof. There's that medicine man's grandson was up on the corner like Spider-Man in his normal clothes. I don't know if you've seen Spider-Man, how he's on the wall.
Yes. Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
yeah,
As
he's like
as
that
I'm
on the.
wearing my Spider-Man t-shirt. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like that in the corner, and she grabbed the broom and started smacking him. And our family was really targeted. And years before all that encounter, my grandpa gave that a well-known medicine man a ride. I guess he was drunk, and he dropped him off, and he left his satchel. So medicine men, they have a satchel they carry around with them, their toolkit. So he took it home, and he educated my mother, her sisters, her brothers on the toolkit, the skinwalker. So he dumped it out, and they found bones, they found teeth, They even found two of that medicine man's dentures inside, and it smelled like rotten, decaying human flesh. They seen hair, they seen all kinds of weird things inside of there. And that guy started targeting our family. And I guess 3 days later, my grandmother and that young man, his grandson, great grandson, passed away. And yeah, and then the next day, when my grandfather came to his friends, I guess there was another medicine man there. His jaw dropped. I guess my grandmother, she died in a horrible accident. She kicked him out right before she flipped the truck, and she ejected the truck, landed on her. And so that other medicine man seen him coming. He's like, "You're not supposed to be here. There was something done. So you and your wife were supposed to be dead." So that medicine man walked away. So,
So something
the
like
weird target.
something intervened to save your grandfather, but unfortunately,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, I was supposed to be there too that day, that accident, but for some reason I couldn't wake up in the morning because we had livestock out there. We tend to our livestock, and with me being there, my grandmother, my grandfather wouldn't drink because I would get after them. But with me, them being out there, so like a lot of things happen like that, and
So yeah,
you know,
so perhaps if you were there, it might have prevented it, but yet
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
know though. It's one of
it's
those
just magic. Yeah,
yes.
it's just black magic at play at the same time. So everything's by chance. And this is one of the reasons why I'm here speaking out on these experiences, on these things where people try to tell me to be quiet, and I'm like, why you? I have every right to talk. I have every right to tell everyone about what's going on here, about these secrets. I'm here to expose it. You guys been trying to take me out before I was born. and, and, you know, so fast forward to, I was 13 years old. I remember because I hit puberty.
Okay, fair
I
enough. Yeah.
remember I was 13 years old, growth spurt, I got stronger, feeling tough. And yeah, my grandmother's side of the family, they're Christians, so they have a tent revival on the reservation. And these skinwalkers, they come every summer. They come and they do their black magic. They try to curse what's going on there. They try to do what they do. And and it was one of these summer nights, probably around 11:30. A lot of us young teenagers and young adults are trying to plan where we're gonna go spotlighting tonight. Uh, where we gonna go play hide and go seek? What mesa should we drive around? Because we spotlight all night. We ran into Bigfoot, a family member ran into Dogman, ran into Skinwalkers, ET. Um, the list goes on. So, my family, we're all adrenaline junkies. We're adrenaline
Adrenaline
junkies.
junkies, but of the cryptid or of the paranormal and of the unexplainable. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, there's nothing like it. I mean, this was the 90s. So there was no YouTube, no one didn't know anything about this. Okay. So, we're planning that, and we always stick in threes. There's no one man army here. We always have to stick in threes or pairs. So there's three of us walked out the back of the tent to grab something. I can't remember, to get water, or I can't remember. So I remember I was talking. I was with my uncle and a cousin brother. They're both older than me, and I know I was talking, and the moon was out. It was full moon. It was bright, and we walked out the back of the tent. We're going to the south, and we're just chatting, and I heard my grandpa's old Chevy Silverado. The shocks, the struts. When something would jump off you,
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know that.
heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stopped mid sentence. All us three look, and we seen this guy coming down, gliding down, look like he's underwater, coming down slow from the air like this. And he didn't land on the ground. He's 2 to 3 feet above the ground, and
So like he
his
was like
lower his
descending like as if you
Yeah, yeah. Like all his stuff was all gliding down. His jewelry was coming down like this.
Like
He had a lot of
so, like
jewelry
all in like
on.
slow motion kind of thing or something.
Yeah,
Wow.
underwater. That's what it looked like underwater. And half his body was a coyote's body with a tail. And his upper torso was a man. And there was paint on him, lightning, some symbols on him. And he had jewelries, rows and rows of turquoise and silver jewelry. In his hands, he had sterling silver and jewelry on his hands, and bracelets, and he was decked out in all these jewelries. And he had white face paint. He had white face paint. He had a coyote pelt on, a big coyote pelt on, white face paint. And I know there was more to it on his face, like more designs and stuff like that. And he had a Navajo blanket on, draped over him like this on his arm, kind of like you know what I mean. He had that like that, yeah. And he was standing there. We are looking at each other, and I don't know how long we were staring at each other, and I heard lightning, like thunder, like boom, boom. That's all I heard, and what I saw was him flying zigzag down the road like a flash, like he ran down the dirt road, ran down that way, down like quarter of a mile, half a mile, and he's 2 miles down the other dirt road flying. You'd hear that like a bullet flying by your head, like you hear the speed, and
So
something
that
so supernatural
that thunder sound was him flying, like him, or like
flying.
just going straight.
Boom! Yeah, just taking off the thunderclap. Boom! Like that, like that. And he was like flashed. He was yellow. He was giving off light. And when he was running, he was giving off like a trail of like fire or lightning, like a weird way. And he was flying down the dirt road, just going over the hills.
That is
Gone.
incredible.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
what
and
is your thoughts on that one? Like, is it was it a skinwalker? Was it like a deity, a god, or
no, no, that's a skinwalker. That's how they look. It's they take that form and they would take other forms. They would take like a straight up owl form and come and spy on you. And they would come and try to take your eyes. They would target one person. An owl would go around them trying to take their eyes, and people would have to pray for that one guy because he's being targeted. So there's a lot of telltale signs of them spying on you. They would use ravens to come collect information on you. They would have like a rock say that this is a crystal right here, and they would sing chants, and this crystal would give off would project you what you're doing. They'd be watching you. Like right now, they could be watching me talk about them right now, this very moment. So, they know no bounds of privacy, and they will be able to see through these walls. So these guys have supernatural
supernatural
powers.
power, supernatural ability? So what do you do to protect yourself from them? Because I'm sure there's something you can do, but what is it?
No fear.
No fear.
That's the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, no fear. I mean, you don't allow yourself to become a subject of their magic.
Because they like you're saying, like they feed off your fear, and that's a common thing with like demons and paranormal, where they, you know, I've heard the term before, loosh, which I don't like that word, but it's kind of like they feed off of that fear. So no fear is that's big. That's big to not have that fear. That's a big thing to overcome.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is. Especially when you're, out in the middle of nowhere, no light, and you hear a lot of things.
Yes,
There's hauntings one area, skinwalkers one area, Bigfoot in one area, UFO activity in one area. You got the rake coming in and out of the cave in this area. and you got lizard man over here, and you got centaur over there, you got goat man over here. So it just the Navajo Nation is home to many creatures. So I feel at home
It's
there.
the epicenter of the strange and the unexplainable.
Yeah.
So no
Mhm.
fear. Is there anything else? Is there like, like
Um,
some sage or some tobacco or something? I don't know.
we we don't we use sage differently on the reservation. We use them to we add water. We use it to mix in our water to lose our scent. So like wild animals out there, they if they can't smell you, they'll be out and about. And it'll increase your chances of encountering Bigfoot for sure.
Okay.
Lizard man for
Is
sure.
that like drinking the
Yeah,
water? Okay.
you mix it with the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the flavor, add as much as you want. It's good for you, and the sage will come out of your pore. But us Navajo, the traditional Navajo, they use bear root, bitter root, and they would have a arrowhead for protection. That would ward off all the evil, the skinwalkers, and they would have cedar ash. They would apply it on their forehead as much as you want, and they would have like a good pinch of cedar ash, and they would put it on their thumb, and they would have a specific prayer that they would teach you, and then you would flick it after you're done singing that prayer. You flick it off your thumb, and that thing, the ash will fly off, and that ash will form an arrowhead right in front of you, and it'll fly to that skinwalker like a heat sensor. And you would hear that skinwalker would see that, and that skinwalker would try to go run off. That arrow would fly, and you would hear it connect, and you would hear that woman or that man moan and groan over yonder trying to run. And when you go on his trail, you would see blood, and that's how you would be able to track and find him or her. And they're never alone, there's always two. So if there's one by themselves, the other one is at the lair, a cave. They have a blanket, like a animal blanket, and they would have a feather standing up. The feather's moving around. If that feather drops, then that guy would go because that guy needs help. He's going to get help or carry his body back. So they wouldn't leave bodies. So, um, yeah, there's different ways, and I kind of got off track
No, no,
where
no,
we are.
no. This is fascinating. It's extremely fascinating. Like I think it's very important, to pass on this information and these stories so people know what is really out there because the I'm not going to say the real world because this is the real world, but there's that other fabricated, TV Netflix world where people don't see past it. They
Oh,
just everything that they're told. I'm just going to watch the news and I'm just going to believe everything that's on there. But there's so much more, and it's you just have to step. I don't know, out of the cycle, or you step to the side, and then you can see beyond the walls. You can see everything else that this world is truly has. We've been,
yeah,
yeah, we've been, we got blinders on. We're like workhorses with blinders on, and so don't look anywhere else. Just keep your head forward. 9 to 5, work, watch the news, watch your Netflix, drink a beer, have a steak. That's it. Repeat. Um, it's there's so much more, and I applaud you for doing what you're doing because it's very important that these stories get out there because that's what that's the original thing was we were storytellers. You were storytellers, and that's how we passed on our heritage. That's how we passed on all this information. And now it's kind of it's getting all polluted and perverted, and it's been taken away, and they've twisted it. But we have to keep telling the truth. I think it's so important that happens.
yeah. I think that's the disinformation just plays a role on everything, and the real ones, the real skinwalkers, they don't mind. They don't mind the disinformation, but once the true information gets out there, that's when they have a real problem with it. And they tried to, you know, ask me to join a few times, because I had my firstborn. And when you have your firstborn, that's when they know, they sense it. They sense the firstborn and the father. And that's when they want to come around, ask for the baby, and ask you to give him up, and you exchange get powers. So, like my whole life, I do have the gift of what do you call it, astral projection. So, So, they do send things your way, and they can send it in ways of demonic formation coming to spy on you. And, a lot of times I would have to chase that thing out. That's the only way I would be able to see it is if I, go in the other realm. I would see what's going on. They like during the day, they won't be sleeping. They'll be in their room in that realm, astral realm, collecting information and spying on everybody, spying on whoever they're paid to spy on, and they're getting rid of whoever they're getting paid to get rid of, that specific individual. So you would move into this area with your livestock and that family. That family in that area are all family, the same clan. They don't like you, and they will go to a medicine man to get rid of you, and he will. That money will blind him. He'll use his gifts for wrong. And, not only that, like you're out in Albuquerque, you're Navajo, and all those other Pueblo tribes have their own magic, and they would have their own key, those Kachina dolls. They would sing some songs, put curses on those dolls, and those dolls will come to life and look for Navajos to make a bad day, give you a bad night. So, there's like a lot of curses, and then this other tribe would send snakes to you, send spiders to you, and send you bad dreams. So you can't accept gifts from certain other tribes, especially necklace, because they want control of your life. So there's certain tribes you are not to accept certain gifts. So other tribes have their own black magic. So in reality, you're here, you're in a secret war that's still going on before the United States colonized, for Spain colonized. So you have these other tribes against these other tribes fighting with in the physical realm and in the spiritual realm. So like there's a so there's reasons why I don't reveal so much of my identity, especially my clan, because we have to protect as much as we can. And I got my name out here, my likeness out here talking about it,
But
So I have
I understand. I completely understand actually, because you're putting yourself out there and you become a target, much more of a target than you were before. And that's one thing is actually I don't go by my full real name. I keep that kind of separate. I try to separate that to protect my family. But it's yeah, we are out here and we are a face, and we're trying to help and teach and wake up people. I don't like saying wake up, but we're just trying to inform people of what's all
you
going
said
out
it.
there. Hmm.
The British are coming. The British are coming.
Exactly. Wake up. But but what's crazy though is that you are still in a battle. Like you are always have to be on guard. You always have to be aware, and perhaps that's something that I need to take to heart because you're like, yeah, we have to be aware not to take any gifts from this tribe or from that or from this, and then there's me like, do, oh, thanks, and it's kind of like, and I just started realizing this recently where it's kind of, I need to be aware of what I bring into my house because a gift sometimes is people aren't as good-hearted as I believe, or maybe that I am. When I give someone a gift, it is because I want you. I care for you, and I want you to have this. But there's people there with ill intentions, and I think that's something I need to be aware of. And um, yeah, I definitely have to be more aware of everything out there in the future here. But Don, I want to say thank you so much for spending the time. And do you have any parting words before we
one
head out? Yeah.
Yeah, just one more thing for you, like walk around your property, look at your walls, look at every little thing, especially look for any symbolism of a face, a head, feathers. You're in you're in Mexico, so the craft can be a little different down there. So pay attention to the signs and symbols. I know Mexico, Veracruz is number one in the world of witchcraft and
Yes.
those that practice. So they have their own signs and symbols. So America has different rulers over different regions. So that's why America has so many different bad things around us all the times. Because some a head demonic being is in charge of a little plot. Some demons in charge of this reservation, another demon's in charge of that reservation or the state, or like that. So you make enemies different on all places, and it's been a pleasure
Yeah, and it's
jumping on
actually
with you.
funny you just say that because, like, today I had a lot of bad luck happen, and I got woken up in the morning to a loud thunk on the side of our house, and we're on the second floor, and it's just a solid wall, and I kind of knew it was a bird. I knew a bird hit into the side of the wall of our house, and then my car breaks down. My wife's computer breaks down. Then we just had that power outage as well during this. It's so I think maybe I need to start getting my house in order and and playing it a little bit safer here.
Yeah, like a lot of times, um, you know, your fear is being tested and all else fails. What works a lot is calling on the name of Jesus Christ.
You're right.
Believe it or not, it does work. It really does work, especially, I played Ouija board, I seen a portal open up and it was sucking me in, and I started calling on his name and that portal closed. That it really does happen. It's real. The Ouija board is one thing you do not want to mess with. You
I have said that so many times, and I have some people who get very upset about me saying that, and because I did mess with it. I messed with it when I was, like, 16, 17 years old, and shit.
the team.
There we go, and shit got real in my house after that,
Yeah.
man, and
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
scary. Yeah,
Exactly.
scary.
I
Yeah,
had
I'll probably tell you that story next time,
oh,
but it
you know
got
what?
tense quick.
Don, I would love to have you back. Like, this I could keep talking for hours and hours with you because I find this absolutely fascinating, and I think you have a lot to share. So
Oh yeah, I'm barely just at the tip of the
you're just
iceberg on the
scratching the
skinwalker
surface.
subject.
Yeah, not even
Yeah,
scratching the surface. Yeah, you just
yeah. So like you can hop on my podcast. I'm gonna be having a hand trembler. That's another medicine man and another medicine man coming on. They're gonna talk about what they do with the battling the dark side and how to protect yourself and your loved ones. More details and more getting more into the spiritual warfare, what we deal with on this side.
I I'd love to. I'd love to, listen and hear all this. And one last time, Don, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find your podcast as well.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. Don't Whistle at Night podcast. I do have TikTok. Don't Whistle at Night. I do post shorts there. I am on Spotify. Same name. Don't Whistle at Night podcast. We're also on the radio at New Orleans, 107.7 FM, in Ontario, Canada, 105.3 FM, UFO and Paranormal Radio Network. And yeah, just we go live Sundays, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, maybe even TikTok soon.
Fantastic. That is awesome, Don. Thank you so much. And I definitely want you back. This is, like if something ever happens, you're like, I got something to share with you, just message me. And by all means, you are more than welcome to come back on. And I'll be hitting you up probably in a couple of months saying to come back on as well. So thank you so much, Don.
All right, awesome. Had fun.
Yes, of course. Wow. So I don't know if tonight's conversation like stirred your curiosity in any way. I it did for me. Please go check out Don's channel, which is Don't Whistle at Night podcast on YouTube, and follow his work. His boots on the ground research and his storytelling is unlike anything else. And again, I want to thank Don for sharing not only these incredible stories, but pieces of his own experience, cultural knowledge. It definitely takes courage to walk into the unknown, to speak openly about these encounters that many would just dismiss, and keep those traditions alive for future generations. So, and as we continue to explore these mysteries, let's also keep Don in our thoughts and prayers for safety in every journey and for protection as he walks into places most of us only dare to imagine. And as I always say, everyone, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the Earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Giants, cryptids that call, aliens, histories, world